Hey guys, welcome to I Hope This Helps. We have an exciting guest today. We have Decker Lindsay with Decker Lindsay Strength and Training. Decker, thanks for coming. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. My name's Decker. As you mentioned, I am the owner of Decker Lindsay Strength and Conditioning in East Hanover, New Jersey. I was born in Wayne, New Jersey, so North Jersey for life, and yeah, excited to be here.
All right, awesome. So, when did you open up your location?
So, interestingly enough, we opened up our facility during COVID. So, something that you wouldn't imagine would be the first thing to jump into your mind is to open a gym during COVID. But just to control kind of the circumstance, we decided that we would move away from the facility that we were working out of because who knew what was going to happen with them if they were going to shut their doors. They had to do what they had to do at the time to make ends meet. And we decided to just take control of it, put the situation in our own hands, and kind of go off on our own and open up our facility.
So you're one of the few entrepreneurs during COVID. You pivoted, and tell me how that was. How did you end up opening? Getting a lot of people are having a hard time getting equipment. A lot of people were scared to go even in a facility to go training. So how did you navigate through all that?
Yeah, it was definitely very stressful. We at first, luckily during COVID, we were able to maintain a lot of our clients by taking them outside, doing some house calls, maybe some frowned upon home visits. But, we ended up being able to get people into the gym with some pretty strict guidelines. We masked everybody up. We spaced the equipment out 6 feet apart as per the recommendations. We did have delays getting equipment and stuff like that, but we kind of planned for that. We had 3 months to build the facility out before rent started, so we just made sure that we started everything early and just pushed forward. And it's definitely stressful. We didn't know if people were going to show up. Luckily, they did. It was hard to get some of the staff on board with wearing masks and stuff like that, but we did everything we could to make people comfortable and get people in, and it worked out.
Okay, so let's fast forward to today's present day. If you had to describe your gym, how would you describe it?
I would say that our facility caters to active adults and athletes who have either a health or performance goal, no matter how big or small. So we've worked with people who, play in the NFL or professional soccer, and we've also worked with people who just want to be able to play with their kids until they're 70. That's like those are kind of the big things that we focus on. Anyone who has an active goal and wants to have an active lifestyle, we cater to.
Okay, so are you doing all one-on-one training? Are you doing group training? Are you doing, tell me a little bit of your business model.
So we primarily do, I would say, like a medium-sized group. So typically we would cap the groups at like a 10, but we're casually, most of the time, seeing like 4 to 6 people per group. Kind of gives us enough personalization, but also that community aspect. And then we kind of supplement that with one-on-ones. The group just gives us a little bit more control over the schedule. It doesn't make scheduling a hair with the one-on-ones. Sometimes it's a little bit tough to get everybody in. The group times are just set. It's easy. It's kind of cruise control. So we primarily focus on the group. We have an adult group program. We have both youth and high school groups as well. So we cater to those types of athletes. So it's a real mix across the board with one-on-ones for certain situations and where it's needed.
All right, so a group training, right? Your adult classes. How do you take care of it, making it, community, like you said, and how do you personalize it to each individual person, or is it just a set workout and everybody has to just go with it? Like, what is your philosophy behind all that?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was designing the small group program, specifically the adult group, because the athletes were kind of on top of them a little bit more in terms of the rigidity of the structure, and it's hard to get the younger kids to focus. So we have to kind of have them all doing at least something that looks the same. So they're pretty much all doing the same program with slight variation. For our adult population, what we do is we do an initial consult with everybody and we say, what are your specific goals? Like, what are you looking to get out of this and being here? And then from there, we decide what their program's going to look like. So even though we have certain days that are more of like your boot camp style class, a little more of like a circuit training, cardio based day, where everybody's doing the same workout together with slight variation. We have those other days that are more of like a resistance training day where you have a specific goal in mind. So we've had people that have their own personalized program to do an Ironman or to, deal with their low back pain, or if they're a runner and they're struggling with Achilles pain, we can work stuff in for that. So it gives us enough control and also allows us to have everybody working together at the same time, mixing it up. We have a good mix of people that come in, all different types of backgrounds. So it's a good mix of people that we see every day.
Okay, so minus your strength training, right? You said your group training. Now, do you do the same workouts, for the month and it's like everything's always the same, or are you changing it up? Because I know a lot of these other gyms, your big franchises, a lot of big complaints are it just gets boring. It's always the same thing. How do you handle that?
So we have kind of a template that we loosely follow. We give the coaches some room to adjust as needed, but we do have a template that kind of goes on a monthly basis where it varies certain types of workouts based on some research by this guy named Joel Jameson, who wrote a book called Ultimate MMA Conditioning. He's pretty famous for working with people like Mighty Mouse and like Rich Franklin, different people that he's worked with. So he's like the conditioning guy in the field. We've kind of looked at him and said, okay, let's base our philosophy around that a little bit. And we kind of vary the workouts within the week. There'll be a certain type of workout on Monday in the circuits, then Tuesday, something different, Friday, something different. Then the following week, it's going to change. And then every 2 weeks, it pretty much kind of resets unless we're doing some kind of event. Like right now, we're doing an October challenge where we maybe make the workouts a little bit more based on elevating your heart rate and getting those MEPs. If anyone has a MyZone strapper knows what that is. People love that. So we tailor it to that if there's an event going on or something different.
Wait, tell me more about these challenges. What is that?
So the October challenge that we run is basically a combination of tracking our client's effort. So we have a system called MyZone that we use that tracks everybody's effort and gives you points based on how hard you're working. And then it's also combined with these quirky, wild fitness challenges that we do that can go anywhere from like a timed fitness event to like us using a decibel reader and like trying to track the loudest med ball slam. So it just depends. We try to make it fun. We try to make it interesting for the members to stay engaged and have fun for the month. Something a little bit different.
And how are these members take it? Do they get really into it, or they slack off, or do they like go extra? How does that go?
We get two types of responses. The first response is the hyper competitive, like attack the workout kind of person. The other one is the, oh, I hate this challenge type of people. And we're fine with both. We manage both. But for the most part, I think people get excited for the October challenge. It gives them a month to kind of push a little bit harder than they normally would, and then reset for the holiday months coming up. So it's a good time for us to do it as the fall kicks in.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So you also do young athletes, correct? What ages do you usually work with?
So interestingly enough, we start taking kids at 10. That's what we tell the parents, unless they're referred by one of the skills coaches that we work with, maybe like a soccer facility in the area or something like that. I was always the type of person who said that I never wanted to have a youth program at our facility. Too much headache, kids, lack of focus, not for me. But once we started working with these skills coaches, these soccer coaches, basketball coaches, they would refer us kids, and I'd have a conversation with the parents, and they'd be like, oh, my son has patellar tendonitis or Achilles pain or some kind of knee pain, and they're 10 years old. So I started seeing that more and more, where the amount of work that they're being asked to do on a regular basis, because, travel soccer is crazy, any competitive travel sport, even at the youth level, they're asking the kids to do so much. And the strength of these kids can't keep up with the demand of the sport. So I feel like now the shift towards earlier strength training, obviously age appropriate strength training, is important, whereas in the past, I kind of didn't see it that way. I was like, oh, just take the kids outside, like let them be active. But I do think that now a more focused strength training approach for these younger kids to help keep them injury-free and resilient is important. So typically we start them at 10, whereas in the past I might have said, hold off till they're in high school. But different story now.
It's crazy. Youth sports have turned into such a business. It's travel baseball, it's travel basketball, it's soccer. People don't get any days off, these kids anymore. Like they can't even they got to specialize in one sport at such a young age that now these trainers are actually pushing people to do conditioning as well. It's kind of crazy. How are these kids handling it? Are they more mature than usual, or tell me a little bit about them.
Luckily enough, I think when we get a referral from a skills coach, it's usually because the kid is pretty high level. So most of the kids we get are pretty focused. We do have almost like a screening process, and we have an evaluation session for the kids as well. And I tell the parents up front that what we look for is not as much the performance testing that we do, but the emotional maturity. Because if we have one kid that's all over the place, it's going to disrupt the class. And, as much as we want to take everybody and help all the kids out, we do have to say, look, like if it's going to detract from most, we have to kind of say no and move on. But we might push that kid to like a one-on-one setting and see if they kind of mature from there and still get some benefit out of training.
So that's a tough job on its own because at least with the adults, right, you only got to make sure that you're doing the best that you can for that one client and you're getting that feedback. Now with the youth program, now the kid might like you, but the parents might think that you're not pushing them hard enough. Now you got to please two people, and let's face it, every little Ricky and Tom, they're all going to the major leagues and the NFL and the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, how do you navigate those circumstances?
That is the balance. And I think that there's a difference between just having your kid run gassers at the field and saying that's conditioning versus, something like speed training where, if you look at a workout that Usain Bolt is doing, the best sprinter ever, he's running one sprint. He's probably taking like 8 to 10 minutes rest and then running another sprint. And this is the fastest guy on planet Earth. Now, does a young kid need that much rest? No, but if a parent saw their kid taking 1 to 2 minutes rest between sprints, they'd be like, why is my kid not running hard enough? But what you'd actually be doing is just dampening how fast they'd be running on the next rep. You'd just be having them run slow for the sake of running slow. So we have to explain to the parents very specifically that on our speed training days, they take a little more rest. It's about maximal effort and output. And on conditioning days, you can do repeat effort with very short rest in between. And there just has to be an understanding between everybody that this is what we're focusing on for the day. If it's something like conditioning, you can do this. Maybe it makes more sense for you to do it outside of the facility, at the field, something like that. And we have those conversations all the time with parents. So recently we haven't been having those like, oh, my kid's not working hard enough conversations. So it's been better.
Yeah, but what about, little Ricky that is, mom and dad believe is better than little Tommy, and they feel like little Tommy's holding little Ricky down. How do you handle something like that?
Yeah, well, I think that our group size helps us kind of mitigate that a little bit because with the kids, we take smaller groups. So we'll cap the groups at 6, and that really allows us to be like, okay, little Timmy, take the 30-pound weight, and little Alex, take the 40. Like, if we're doing something weighted, or if they're pushing the sled, adding more weight, like things like that, where we can kind of modify based on the person. It gives us a little more flexibility with the small groups. And then we always just relay that to the parents like, hey, Alex was working really hard today, so we pushed him a little bit more. I think it's just about open communication overall.
That's great. Now, there's different sports, right? There's baseball, there's football, basketball, and so on and so on. Do you tailor people's workouts towards their sport?
Yes, at some level. I mean, obviously, when you go into a group training protocol, it's generally understood that for the most part, we're working on the general strength and conditioning qualities. And especially with the young kids, they really just need to be generally strong with good core strength, good movement quality, jumping, sprinting, throwing medicine balls, and they'll be great. Once you get into like late high school, college, that's when you need to specify. So for the most part, at the young age, it's easy to build general qualities, and then everybody from every sport gets better. Once you get into high school, like if you have a swimmer working out with like a football kid, that's going to be a challenge. And that's something where those kids might need a little more autonomy. They might need to be doing their own program at our facility. And maybe that's someone we'd push to one-on-one if they're at a high level, honestly.
All right. Do you have any success stories of, an example, a kid that is needed to throw maybe 4 miles per hour harder, and that was the difference between not playing in college and playing in college? Do you have any success stories like that?
Off the top of my head, I mean, I'm thinking of a couple. We definitely had some people have some really good breakout performances at the youth level and the high school level. I'm trying to think of who might come to mind. I mean, at the professional level, we did have a woman by the name of Didi Harachich, who was basically, she was playing for the local team here, Gotham, and she ended up getting picked up by the new expansion team. It was Angel City FC, which is in LA. And she had a breakout year after training with us. Not to say that we were responsible for her result, because at the end of the day, an elite athlete is going to be elite no matter what you do with them. But I think that she had some injuries and some things going on that we worked around, and I was really proud of that result for her. And we've definitely had some kids that have thrown harder. We had one kid at Seton Hall that was pitching where he did a lot of strength training, but most importantly, Coach Chris, who works with us, he was working on giving him more external rotation. So he pinpointed that he was limited in external rotation at the shoulder. So if you're like a baseball nut, you know that the shoulder health and the range of motion you can get on the layback of the throw is everything for a pitcher. So he helped him improve that, and he ended up throwing harder during the season. So some good stuff there too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Anytime you can help anybody out, that's always, in getting those type of results is always satisfactory. All right. So more importantly, what about diet? What about all these fabs that are going on? How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never the one to be drastic with the diet. I think my approach is pretty basic, and I think that most people, if you ask them, they would know what to do, but the accountability isn't there. I think that's the big thing. And I think when we have people that say, I'm struggling with my diet, what I try to explain to them is that your diet and your training is kind of like your investment account. It's like your retirement account. You have to dollar cost average. Not every day is going to be great, and you're not just going to like do a keto diet for a week. That's like putting $1 million into your IRA and then whatever. You never do that. You gradually over time build it up. So I would say that even if you're not feeling great, even if you're feeling mediocre, even if it's your best day ever with your diet, just keep trying to do as best you can. Even if you fall off a little, don't just implode. That's the biggest thing. Moderate progress over time. And it's the same thing for training. If you feel amazing at the gym, go in. If you feel okay, go in. If you feel less than your best, go in. Just show up. It doesn't have to be perfect every time. So my approach with diet is pretty simple. Track what you eat and just be as consistent as you can for a long period of time. Don't just do something drastic for a week or two, because that's going to be a recipe for a weight rebound.
All right. So when you say track everything that you eat, now are you trying to say, hey, watch your calories that you intake? Are you looking for someone to get a certain amount of protein? Are you trying to limit for certain meals after a certain time? Come on, you got to give my audience some better advice here. Let's go.
Yeah. So I would say that I'm a big calorie tracking guy, but it is situational, because some people might get obsessive with the numbers, and that's not good either. So first and foremost, we're going with the habit change guide. So we're going to tell them, hey, get as close to your body weight in protein as you can, in grams of protein. It's like a good staple, very basic to follow. Might be challenging for some people, but just get close. From there, drink water throughout the day. And as far as like tracking your calories, if you're someone that can handle that type of tracking and commitment, and it's not going to be a negative for you, then yeah, we're going to look at protein first. So first and foremost, the same thing, 1 gram per pound of body weight would be ideal. And then we're just going to fall in line with how aggressive you need to lose the weight. If you're someone that's really struggling, then we might go to like a pound and a half per week, very aggressive. And then from there, we're going to just adjust the fats and carbohydrates based on, how aggressive they want to go. Because that's really it. If you can keep protein high and bring everything else down a little bit gradually and slowly, and just when they hit a plateau, adjust it more, I think that will go a long way.
How do you feel about not eating after a certain hour? How do you feel about fasting, intermittent, long fast? Give me some your thoughts on that.
I think that fasting is good if it works for your schedule and your life. Um, I think that if you were to probably, I mean, listen, like you have to look at the research, which, I'm not in the lab doing the testing. So I think that if you look at both things, I think that if the calories are equated, you're probably going to get a similar result. So with that being said, if you're someone that really struggles with late night eating or you're overeating in the morning, I think fasting is good because it'll change the hunger signals. Like if you don't eat after 10 o'clock at night for 2 weeks, you're probably going to be less hungry at 10 o'clock at night. And I think fasting does a really good job helping people that overeat constantly to kind of shut that down. I've had a lot of people that I know that have asked about it and have done our tracking system with fasting, and I think that's great. If they can stick with it, I think that's awesome. Yeah, I think any system is good as long as you're not being too drastic and too limiting and being realistic with your goals.
Okay, so let's go now to the other extreme. You're an athlete that wants to uh, do an Ironman or run a marathon and something like that. How stringent their diet has to be, correct?
Yeah.
Now, what would you suggest for someone like that?
For someone like that, I would say that you're going to have to get hyper specific around your training. So, your carbohydrate intake, if you're doing endurance work, like you said, the Ironman, if you have someone that is training early in the morning, then they're going to need to get their carbohydrates and their electrolytes in pre and post workout. That's going to be first and foremost. Then the rest of the day can kind of be centered around that. But we're looking at the training time because it's going to be obviously very rigorous. We're going to look at that first and kind of build off that. So, someone that's doing a lot of endurance work is going to have to focus more on the carbohydrates. They're going to have to look at their daily expenditure throughout the week. So how much are they burning? How many calories are they burning? What's their weight doing every week? And then you're going to have to make a lot of micro adjustments to their nutrition plan, which can be challenging. But as long as they are focused around their workout, getting protein in right after their workout, and then adjusting based on their workday. I mean, some people that are training for Ironmans have no other job. Some people work a full-time job. So that's a situation where maybe you have someone that has to fast because they're at work after. So centering nutrition around training and then adjusting outside of that is key.
Okay. Supplements. Do you suggest any? Like, I know there's a lot of big results when it comes to creatine now.
Sure.
A lot of new science are also saying that it's helping with like Alzheimer's and
cognitive
all that
function.
stuff. You got any suggestions in that?
Yeah, I'm very basic on the supplements. For me, it's the big three are some kind of multivitamin, that's always going to be great. Protein, if you need it. If you're not able to, like I said, that 1 gram per pound of body weight protein, if you're not able to hit that with just foods alone, then definitely supplement with some kind of protein source, whether it's a whey or if you're vegan or vegetarian, like a soy or a pea option would be good. And then creatine is a staple for me. Been taking it for 15 years nonstop. I think that the new research that's coming out about the cognitive health stuff is really cool and I think super important. And I think it's just where a lot of people in the past were like, I don't want my kid taking creatine, or I'm nervous, I have to drink so much more water. I think that has kind of gone by the wayside, and now it's just more understood that it's helpful both for cognitive health and for performance for sure.
Now, the new study, I believe, says that even though you're taking creatine, a lot of people are taking not the right amount, especially when it comes to the cognitive issues. Now, I believe the new suggestion is 25 grams.
It's a lot more than it used to be.
Right, because I think the actual on the dietary thing says 5 grams,
5
correct?
grams, yeah.
So, do you have a thought process on that?
That's
Or an opinion, I mean?
more new to me. It's something I saw recently. I've always taken the 5 grams, mainly just so I don't have any GI distress or anything like that. It would be interesting to see long term. I think if they're doing long term studies on it, I'd love to see the results. I would love to see, like, for performance, for cognitive functions one thing, but for performance, like how much more they're getting out of that, because that's like 4 times, 5 times the old recommended amount. I would love to see kind of where it levels off, like if it really is that much more helpful for performance. But situationally, if someone doesn't have GI distress and that's going to be effective for Alzheimer's and for cognitive health, then sure, if that's what the research is saying, that's what we got to go with.
Okay, and you mentioned something about you have to take more water when you're on with creatine, or is that like a myth that has been conquered? I've never even heard of that.
I think that you used to really think that, like, you had to, people would be like, oh, I might have, certain issues if I'm taking it. I might have kidney issues or something like that. But I think that, if you just drink a little bit more water, you're fine. It's not like going to severely dehydrate you. I think that it used to be like parents thinking like, oh, my son has to drink like, twice the amount of water and like go crazy. But if you're drinking enough water throughout the day, you're not going to have any issues with creatine.
Okay. So another thing that's been big also, for aging, and everybody's all about that right now. Everybody's trying to reverse the clock. Sleep. They say sleep is one of the most important things. What is the right amount of sleep or rest?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you can get, which most of us can't, if you could get 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night, then I mean, you'll probably live a long, healthy, stress-free life. You probably have no stress going on at all if you're sleeping 10 hours a night. But I think that if you could get in a solid 7 to 8, you're probably going to be in the right spot. We definitely recommend in our habit checklist that we give out 8 hours of sleep. That's a challenging one. It's a challenging one for me. It's a challenging one for a lot of our clients with, stressful, challenging jobs. You're always thinking about it. So you have to just do what you can. Like if you can build good habits around bedtime, cutting out blue light, getting off the phone, maybe not watching TV, maybe reading a book an hour before bed instead of just being on the phone, looking at stuff on the internet, I think that will help. And I think that if you could get a good, deep REM sleep, that's going to be more important than getting like just 10 hours of garbage sleep. So something to think about for sure.
You said something interesting. You said something about like a lot of us that have stressful, challenging jobs, right? For example, when I'm stressed, and from work or my family or whatever other issues I'm going on, I tend to gain weight or stressy or hold on to
Yeah.
my weight, and then all of a sudden, like it can vary by a bunch of pounds from one day to the next. Do you have any suggestions or advice when it comes to that?
I think that it's always good to, it really comes down to awareness, like self awareness. Like if you're having a moment where you feel that your stress is coming on, like what is your interrupter for that? Like, are you going to take a step back and say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I need to not go off the rails. Like, is there something that you can do to kind of put the bad habits on pause? So for me, if I'm stressed out, I might take a second. I might even do like some guided meditation a little bit and just be like, all right, I'm feeling real stressed out. I have to just take a step back, not think about work, not think about money stuff, things like that. Just sit back, say, okay, I can either put a pause on it or I can just go off the rails. And if you can be aware of those situations and put some kind of like pattern interrupt where you're like, I'm feeling this way, but I still have to go on with how I've been doing. I think that's going to be key. That's a harder thing to do than to talk about. That's tough because your brain is everything, and your brain will tell you to do something and you'll do it. So you really got to reverse engineer your psychology a little bit and say, I'm going to move forward even though I'm feeling super stressed out.
And you said something that you do what? Guided meditation?
A little bit of meditation if needed, not as frequently as I'd like to, but
All right. Now, what are some other stuff people can do?
That's a good question. To kind of manage your stress a little bit, I think for one is pick up a hobby. That's always good. For me, I do a lot of martial arts. I've been doing, I've been training. That was big for me. Like when I had stress in college, that's part of the way that I found the gym. So training for me was always a big one. Getting exercise for sure is always going to be like a great form of stress relief. So yeah, I would say that those are the big things: meditation, exercise, picking up a hobby, something that you haven't done before. Just putting your energy somewhere else that's not into what you're already inflating as this big issue in your life. I think when you put air into your problems, they just become bigger and bigger.
So, all right. So let's try to narrow that down a little bit more because a lot of times when you're stressed out, you don't have an hour to
For
go,
sure. Yeah.
do martial arts or get to the
Yeah,
gym.
for
There's
sure.
obviously something stressing you out at that moment. So, like a lot of people, there's a lot of interesting stuff when it comes to breath work,
Oh yeah.
or even just to be in silence for a couple of minutes. Do you suggest anything like that?
Yeah, I think that what happens when we get stressed out is, you have two different parts of your nervous system. One is like your fight or flight system, your parasympathetic or your sympathetic nervous system, and then your rest and digest, that's your parasympathetic nervous system. So what happens is we get revved up and our nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system kicks on and it says, okay, I got to survive. Like I'm stressed out, like I'm wound up. We have to target that parasympathetic system and get ourselves to calm down. So that's where the calm, controlled breathing comes in. If you get stressed out, you start to hyperventilate, you start to freak out. You have to get back down to baseline. So I would say getting in a dark, quiet room, calm breathing. We do a lot of like belly breathing or like some supine breathing where you're on your back with your feet up, doing some in through the nose, out through the mouth exhalations. I do think that that goes a long way. If in a moment in time you can say, I'm stressed out, I got to do some breath work. I do think that that's super important.
Okay. So you gave us a lot of good nuggets. We've covered a lot of good topics. We talked about supplements, especially creatine. We spoke about importance of sleep, just working out, different types of training, and everything like that. But let's go a little bit more specific for, before we have some fun. Okay. So
Okay.
someone that says, hey, I want to put on some muscle, right? Or they want to get more definition. So, what is the right amount of stuff, or what do you suggest? Should someone work out? Let's say they want to get bigger biceps. Should they do biceps every day? Should they do more reps, less reps? Like, what's the different
Sure.
misconceptions out there?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with starting point. If it's someone that's totally brand new, then we have to consider a couple things. One is that the weight that they're using is going to be light relative to other people that are super strong, so they're not going to be able to create as much tissue damage as somebody that's like curling 135 on the straight bar. Like that person's going to have a longer recovery time. So someone that's a newer trainee
Are you
can
filming me at the
train.
gym by any chance? I'm just kidding.
So we have to consider that. And I think that, when you're newer, you can train the same muscle groups a little more frequently. As you get better and more advanced, you might have to space things out accordingly. Smaller muscle groups are not going to create as much fatigue, so you can still train them more frequently, even up to, an advanced training age. Bigger exercises, like let's say you're focusing on the deadlift, like that's something that's going to create a lot of fatigue, something you probably can't do too often, maybe once, twice a week. 3 times if you're going super light on one of the days, but it might not make a lot of sense. So a lot of factors to consider. But I would say that if someone's trying to put on muscle, they should at least be in the gym 3 to 4 days a week. They should be working in probably that 8 to 12 rep range to create some actual good tissue growth. There is some benefit to doing like the 15 to 20s for sure. But I would say that most of your training should probably be in that 8 to 12, maybe 15 range if you're trying to put on muscle. If you're trying to get strong or you hit a plateau in your, 8 to 12 rep range, maybe we drop the reps down and do a little bit more strength work before going back up in the reps. At the end of the day, it's about incremental progress, then pulling back a little bit so we don't get hurt, and then pushing again, pulling back a little bit. It has to be a little bit cyclical in nature.
Okay, so you said pulling back, right? There's also I don't know if it's a myth or different types of training. There's certain people that say, max of 10 reps, right? But you got to use about 80% of your max weight or whatever strength. And I'm just throwing these
Sure,
numbers out there.
sure,
Did not
sure,
want
sure.
you to correct me.
No, sure.
And then you see certain people at the gym, they're just trying to get 1 or 2 reps. Now, what are the different types of training when it comes to that?
So you can do, I mean, it depends what your goal is. So if you're someone that's more strength focused, like let's say you just want to have a big bench press, first and foremost, you're going to need the muscle to support that strength. So you're going to have to, even though like an elite power lifter doesn't look as jacked as an elite bodybuilder, they're still pretty jacked because you need at least enough muscle to build strength on top of. So even though I would say that doing like sets of 2, 3, 4 for someone that wants to get really strong are super important, they should have some base of hypertrophy, muscle growth by working in that 6, 8, 10 rep range, be a little more specific to that. Somebody that wants to do like 10, 12 reps, they have to understand that they'll get very strong, but they just might not get to the point of like an elite powerlifter, and that's okay. It just depends on what their focus is.
Okay, so as people are getting older, one of the most important studies they're saying is you need more muscle, correct? And because as you get older, you lose muscle. Now, someone that starts getting in their mid 40s or in 50s and everything like that, it's more difficult to gain muscle, correct?
For sure. Yeah, I would say that it's definitely more challenging as you age.
Okay,
For
so
sure.
now what would you suggest for them to do?
My biggest suggestion would be to start early and hold on to as much muscle as you can. Now, obviously, that
Thanks.
is not going to be that is not going to be the case for everybody. But if you're someone that hasn't done anything and you're, approaching your 50s, 60s, you at least have the benefit of having a very low training age where you'll respond to pretty much any type of lifting. So you have to look at that as a benefit. Get into the gym 3 days a week, do some low risk loaded movements. So make sure that you're not putting your low back in a weird position. You're not gorking your knees, doing like a weird split squat. Do moves that feel comfortable for you. Don't get married to certain exercises and just gradually make incremental progress, whether you're adding weight every other week, whether you're adding reps each week to the same exercises. You just have to make slow, steady progress, and you just have to do anything if you haven't done anything before. That's key. And the main thing is just don't get hurt, because I think that as much as it's hard to put on muscle as you get older, it's even harder to recover from injury. So you got to make sure that you stay safe on the training floor, and that's the most important thing.
Very good. Um, Now, I always feel like there's two types of people at the gym. The one that all they want to do is lift, and then the other person that all they do is stay on the treadmill, right?
Sure, yeah.
You're speaking to one or the other. How do you explain to the person that's lifting, hey, you need to get some cardio in? And how do you explain to the person that's just doing cardio, hey, you need to start lifting a bit?
My sales pitch would be that if you're someone that's just lifting and you love lifting, that's what you're all about. I would say, hey, Eric, you're really doing great lifting. You're very strong. You know what would help you do even more work on the lifting floor? If your aerobic system caught up, if your aerobic efficiency and your recovery was as good as you are strong, I would say that you would improve dramatically in your resistance training. And on the flip side, I would say to someone that loves to run or be on the treadmill or do aerobic work where their heart health and their cardiovascular health is great, I would say, hey, are you having some knee and ankle pain from always running on the treadmill, constant pounding? You know what would help you with that? If you strengthen up the calves, if you strengthen up the knees, if you're doing some split squats, they might even not have to do a ton of lifting, but at least like some isometric movements, like a split squat hold or a wall sit. Some way I could sell them on that, because I think that if you do a mix of both, you're going to have to, it's going to go a long way. Even elite runners now are doing strength training on a regular basis. Super important. And I think that's becoming more recognized.
What are your biggest challenges as running a business?
Biggest challenge is running a business. I would say that just because I was not well versed in it, and just they don't really teach you anything in college, was just the marketing side. And it's gotten better for me, but just, putting yourself out there and finding where your ideal client base is and going to them and, being consistent with creating content like we're doing here today, that can be challenging. So, that for me, I think was definitely the biggest challenge. But over the years, I've grown to enjoy it, and I think it's getting better every year for sure.
Now, what advice would you have someone that, newly into the business and opened up a gym, right? You gotta wear a lot of hats, right? You're sales, you're the trainer, you gotta go change your lights, you gotta do everything, right? How do you handle all those tasks?
I think that the biggest advice I would give someone starting out as an entrepreneur in general is you're afraid and you want to say yes to everything. So it's important to learn how to say no. Otherwise, you end up neglecting things that are actually important. One of my business mentors, Vince Gabriel, says that if everything is important, then nothing is. And I think that that's a great quote, because if you make everything super important, then you can't get to the things that are actually important. It takes away from what is actually important in your business. So something to keep in mind for sure.
That's great advice. Tell us a couple things that people don't know about you.
I think one that people don't know is that I grew up as a skateboarder, so I never was an athlete in high school or college, but now I train professional athletes and D1 athletes, so that's pretty interesting. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, which I also think is pretty interesting. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that, like, physical chess. I think that that's really cool. But yeah, just enjoy working out. I enjoy training. I've competed in natural bodybuilding. I've competed in powerlifting. I kind of found that competitive fire after college, and just tried to do as many things as I could. Got really well versed in a bunch of different things, and I try to tailor that to my training style and approach at the gym.
So, usually when I think of, a skateboarder, right? For example, young kid, usually they're a little wild. They like to do little crazy stunts and everything like that.
Yeah.
But they're usually mostly at the time, I guess, when I was growing up, a little bit on the, party
Oh
side
yeah,
of
for
things,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
But the little that I've gotten to know you is you're far from that, right? I
Yeah.
believe you never even had a drink before. Is that
Never
true?
had a drink before.
Now
No.
that's an interesting
Yeah,
thing.
that is an interesting thing. I think that I really chalk that up to being like a little bit spiteful. Maybe it's like my positive and negative trait where if I see other people doing it, I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like I have a little bit of that spitefulness in me. And I think, just that and seeing like how it really has damaged people that I'm close with, their life, I think that made me always think like, that's not something I want a part of. And I also think a big thing is that my parents, they were very into fitness also. My dad was a bodybuilder, my mom was an aerobics instructor, and they just never drank in front of me. I think that was big because I just never saw it. I never saw my parents drunk ever. Never really saw them even drinking a glass of wine. So it just was not like a normal thing for me, and I was kind of like uninterested, which is, pretty abnormal, I think, for kids now.
So, I mean, you just got married, right?
Just got married, yeah.
I'm sure there was alcohol there.
There was alcohol there, yeah.
How is it being a sober person?
It was fine.
All the
I've been
time.
been like that my whole life, and my awesome wife made sure that not only did they know that I don't drink, but she also, everybody has their signature drink.
Mhm.
She made mine a mocktail, and she made sure that they were feeding me that mocktail all night long. It was like some pineapple ginger beer, like something. And yeah, so it was easy, it's fine. You're stressed out on the wedding day anyway, so it's not really like you're thinking about, I mean, I'm not thinking about going for a drink. I'm just thinking about getting through the night and talking to people. So
So it's funny that you mentioned your wedding and everything like that. So I got to meet one of your clients. His name is Jeff. He's an interesting character. He said you wrote like an early book where you had this saying that you did all the time. What was that about?
So what I used to tell the clients is that I would get married at 70 and have kids at 75 and then just sail off into the sunset, basically, which didn't work out to the way that I wanted it to. But, when it's time, and, here we are.
I'm sure you're better
They don't let
for
me
it.
forget it. They don't let me forget it for sure.
I'm sure you're better off
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it. Is there any advice you'd like to give to the listeners?
Some advice for the listeners. I think that just in general, whether it's training or it's, your hobbies or your relationships, I think you have to really think about what's important to you, and not neglect everything else, but maybe put a little bit less focus on that. really try to emphasize the things that are important to you. Don't get distracted. For me, I never wanted to get distracted by the drugs and alcohol side of it, like we talked about. I just knew that I wanted to build healthy relationships with people. I knew that I eventually wanted to open the gym. And I knew that it would be hard. And if anything was going to make it even harder, I just didn't want any part of it. So I think that if you're somebody that has a big goal, you should really focus up, lock in, and make sure that you're minimizing any distractions outside of what you're trying to do, because it's going to be hard and you're going to hit a resistance point where you either give up or you move forward. And I think you got to really decide what's important to you.
And if somebody's interested in starting training with you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, the best way to contact us would be through our website, deckerlindsay.com. Our gym is in East Hanover at 55 Eagle Rock Avenue. You could also message us on Instagram at Decker Lindsay SC. We also have a podcast called The Performance Compass, where I talk about all different things related to training. And we're starting to do more YouTube stuff as well. So if you search Decker Lindsay on YouTube, you'll find some of that stuff as well. And I'm really excited about that. I think we're going to put out a lot of content that people are looking for. And, if there's anything that you want to see, shoot us a message and we'll definitely make videos around that and help you guys out.
Decker, thanks for coming on. And guys, I hope this helps. This is Eric Silva, and welcome to I Hope This Helps.